Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In Surah Al-Araf, verse 127, Allah says, وَقَالَ الْمَلَأُ مِنْ قَوْمِ فِرْعَوْنَ أَتَذَرُ مُوسَى وَقَوْمَهُ لِيُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَيَذَرَكَ وَآلِهَتَكَ قَالَ سَنُقَتِّلُ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ وَنَسْتَحْيِي نِسَاءَهُمْ وَإِنَّ فَوْقَهُمْ قَاهِرُونَ. And the translation of this verse is, and the chiefs among the people of Pharaoh said, will you leave Musa and his people to cause corruption in the land and abandon you and your gods? Pharaoh said, we will kill their sons and keep their women alive, and indeed we are subjugators over them. Now, as explained in the last episode, the minute you decide to walk the path of Islam, your training begins, which means life suddenly starts to become a lot more difficult. Allah starts preparing you for His service, but usually what happens is that in the beginning, we are filled with passion and love for Allah. We race towards the path of Islam. We tell our family and friends that we are going to change ourselves and become a better Muslim. We start studying the Quran. We start doing 5-time prayers. We feel happy and content. But then gradually the difficulties and the hardships start to come, one after the next. People make fun of us. We lose friends. We start facing tests in our career and profession. And suddenly Islam doesn't seem so exciting anymore. The love we had for Allah suddenly gets converted into fear, and we start asking ourselves, how will I overcome all these difficulties when it seems like everyone has turned against me? My life before used to be so much easier. Are these difficulties ever going to end? And normally at this stage, people will come to you and they will comfort you, telling you to have trust in Allah. Allah will help you. But instead of feeling calm, you start to feel frustrated. You start asking yourself, how? How will Allah help me when everyone seems to hate me? This is the training I was talking about in the previous episode. By then, you will have read the Quran many times. But when you face this challenging life experience and you wonder, where is Allah? Why isn't He helping me? That is when you go back, you read the Quran again, and now every word makes so much more sense. Now, because of your challenging life experience, you gain wisdom. Now, let me give you an example. How many of us have read the story of Musa and Pharaoh? We know it by heart. We know that Musa was raised in the Pharaoh's house ever since he was a baby. We know that he killed someone by mistake. We know that he ran from Egypt to Madian. Then later he returned to Egypt, and on his return he was appointed prophethood. His mission was to give the message to the Pharaoh. We also know that the Pharaoh was very annoyed with his message, and many of us must have read this verse in Surah Al-Araf, where the chiefs of Pharaoh were questioning the Pharaoh about his plan. And the Pharaoh was telling them that he will kill all the male children of Bani Israel. But here's my question. When you all first read this verse, how many of you stopped and asked yourself, why? Why is he killing the male children? The problem is not Bani Israel and male children. The problem is Musa and Harun. So why not just kill them? Isn't that easier? How many of you stopped and asked yourself, this is the Pharaoh, a man known for killing people in the worst possible way, a man who loves torture. What is he thinking? Clearly, even the chiefs are confused at the Pharaoh's behavior because it's so obvious what he should do. So why isn't he doing it? Now, most of us never stopped and asked this question. We just memorized the story of Musa and Pharaoh. But when you are filled with tests because your training has begun, and now suddenly you feel like the whole world has turned against you and your life will never get better, then when you revisit the Quran, suddenly you will stop at this verse, the same verse you've been reading many times, and you will ask yourself, what's going on? At that point, you will ask the one question you never asked before, and then you will realize what Allah is telling you in this verse. Allah is not just narrating a story. Allah is telling you that when He decides to protect His slave, even if the world turns against him, no one can harm that slave. In the same manner, Musa was right in front of the Pharaoh, but why wasn't he killed? Because Allah had decided that his slave will not be harmed. So He ensured that the Pharaoh would not even think of the most obvious solution. And after years of spreading the message, when the Pharaoh finally did decide to kill Musa, Allah by then informed Musa alayhi salam to take Bani Israel and run, because by then his mission was already complete. So the message that is being given in this one simple verse is that no matter how tough your life gets, remember that even if the world decides to gang up against you, they cannot inflict any harm if it is the will of Allah to protect you. You might look at your enemy and think, my enemy has a huge army, so many people who are against me. But remember at that time that your Lord has an even bigger army, an army that includes the entire universe. So why fear? Assalamu alaikum.